taking it to the extreme. I don't know if I can do it anymore. I have been married for 3 years. My wife, we will call her W, and I are at an impasse. While we were dating, I was on cloud 9. Things were awesome. I thought this was finally the woman that I was meant to find. We had some things in common, but not a lot. However, the things we didn't have in common she was interested in. W, while we were dating, was in nursing school, and basically 3 or 4 nights we were together, watching TV, going out with friends, going to movies, making dinner, and working on her homework. Things were great. I noticed that W was smart, had morals, loved spending time with me, and was basically down for anything. So, within a year of meeting her, I popped the question. I do remember her saying yes, but looking back on it, the yes wasn't very confident. After that, we planned the wedding, went to the marriage classes at her family's church. I converted from Catholic to Lutheran. While the differences between the two to me were minimal, I still did it for her. It was something she wanted. However, something I always wanted seemed not to be transpiring. I always wanted my wife to have a good relationship with my family. I have 3 younger sisters, and both parents are still married to each other. Now hindsight is always 20/20 and love is blind. But while we were dating, W never wanted to go over to my parents' house, unless it was to use their boat. At the time I associated it with W just wanted to spend what little time she had free with me. I mean, within the year of dating we may have gone over there 5 to 6 times to hang out with my family. My family, especially my mom, was delighted that a new person was coming into their family. They were asking all the time when the next time she was going to come over. I felt my wife did not have the same feelings. Seeing this, I tried to get some of the wedding planning together. W said that was a good idea. Now the Christmas right before our wedding, we were to be married in March, is where things started to unravel. Her family always does Christmas on Christmas Eve, and I was fine with that. So was my family. My family always celebrated Christmas on Christmas Eve, but W and my sister's husband did Eve. So, my family changed ours to Christmas. So, Christmas was going to be really busy. We had my family and both of our extended families to see that day. So, my family was alright if we came over around 10 to exchange gifts, do a breakfast. That gave my family plenty of time to go to church that morning. W met me at my house early that morning to head over to my parents' house. However, because I wanted to get there on time because that is just who I am, plus I wanted to spend time with my family and grandparents, who were in town from Texas, W got stressed. This caught me by surprise. I didn't know what was going on. W drove to my parents but was driving under the speed limit. This was strange because she always drove 10 to 15 over. I asked her what is up. She responded that she was angry she was up before the rest of her family and going to my family's house. That kind of made me mad, but I didn't let it ruin my day. We got to my family's house 15 minutes late because W also made an unscheduled stop on an exit ramp to vent and smoke a cigarette. This was the first time I had ever seen this action, and we met on an online dating site. She said she was a non-smoker, and I said I was looking for a non-smoker. While there, W was back to her normal self. About an hour after being there, my mother asked W if it was all right for her to join in picking out the flowers. Now, my mom was just trying to get a relationship with my future in-laws. They had only met once before going out to eat. My parents have a great relationship with the 2 of my other sister's husband's family, and that was started by doing stuff together planning the wedding. W agreed that she would let her know when that was to take place. When it was time to go visit W's extended family, W couldn't get out of the house faster. I would say 2 to 3 weeks passed. I get a call from my dad. I guess W called my mom, asking if she wanted a pin-on or an arm flower. I guess my mom freaked out and said some things that shouldn't have been said, thinking that due to the prior arrangement she would have been invited. I don't know what was said, but I guess that soiled any hope that things between W and my family would be at least cordial, because that is the first thing my wife has held on to all this time. Because another 2 to 3 weeks later, my future sister-in-law threw a shower for W, and all I heard from my wife is that my mom acted like a complete witch. However, this was not what my sisters said. My mother is not a social butterfly, and my sisters would have said something if she was acting the way W said she was, and all 3 of them said she was acting normal. However, 2 weeks later, my sister threw a shower for W. Now I was at this one for about a third of the time, arrival and gift. Now I asked W to arrive 15 minutes early to meet my childhood friend's parents. They couldn't stay for any of the shower but personally wanted to meet W, while W for some reason would not come early. In fact, her and her family showed up 15 minutes late. I answered the door when they arrived. Only her 2 sisters said hello to me, even though I said hello to them. I introduced W to my friend's parents and they had to leave. They had plans that were unable to be changed for their grandchild, so I completely understood. Now I didn't stay long, but I already knew that my future mother-in-law had a vendetta to prove, because of her demeanor and what I saw later. I left for an hour while they did the girl things at the shower. I came back for gifts. Now I sat right next to W just to see what we got. My aunt and grandma wanted me there. Well, I couldn't help but notice my mother-in-law was pouting and not making eye contact with anyone. I was told she acted that way the entire time, but for a brief moment we made eye contact. my future mother-in-law and I, and she made an emphatic smile. Well, the shower was over. W agreed to stay after her family left, if I were to drive her home. So, we stayed at my parents' house for nearly 30 minutes. The entire ride home, all W did was complain how my mom acted. Now I was there for this one, and my mom was very friendly. Now I understand that I was gone for an hour. But again I asked my sisters and aunt. My aunt has told me she had very similar marriage problems in her first marriage. All four said she was fine. I then asked my grandma a few weeks later. Now my grandma tells it how it is. I asked in her opinion if my mom acted wrong in any way at the shower at my parents' house. She said no, but did repeat what I saw my mother-in-law do. Also, later that day when I dropped W off at her parents' house, the mother-in-law pulled me aside and apologized to me on the way she acted. I feel she only did this because I saw her. To this day W says her mom acted okay, however has said a few times that she, so which is it, acted that way because no one greeted her at the door. But I did, and even asked if I could grab what she was carrying. About 6 weeks pass, we get married, everything goes well, but my mom didn't hug W at the end of the night or speak to her at our wedding. Or that is what W says. There are photos of W getting a hug from my mom at the church, while in the congrats line. Every little thing my mom did that night has been under scrutiny to this day. If a photo of her doesn't have the flowers on her wrist is seen, it is pointed out. However, there are other photos that have her having them on. Our honeymoon was not the greatest. We spent a whole week in the Smoky Mountains, alone. No cell phone service, no internet, no TV. However, at least 3 days of those days we fought, because W felt she was wrongfully treated at our wedding. I tried understanding, but it was just us. This was supposed to be a time for us just to worry about us, and we did have some good times. But they were always interrupted by what seemed of hatred towards my mom and family. Another thing I remember thinking was very odd. Someone cut us off on the highway nearly 5 hours before we got home. W refused to talk to me. That was the first time I saw her real anger. Now my sister-in-law and mother-in-law both wrote me notes. Both started out basically the same. I know W is sometimes difficult. I don't know anyone who would describe me as difficult. But I never knew what difficult was until then. Within the first couple weeks of being back from our honeymoon, things went from bad to worse. It got so bad that my in-laws had to take W out for her just to calm down. She was steaming about the littlest of things, like my shoes not being lined up perfectly by the door or leaving the pillows on the couch crooked. I finally learned what a nagging wife was all about. The hatred towards my mom and this nagging got so bad we sought help from our first counselor. Her name was Renee. Now we saw her together about a dozen times, but she eventually split us up. During this time W demanded I don't see my family, so I obliged. To help keep the peace, I feel it did nothing. I remember the first day I didn't go over there was Memorial Day. I was totally lost because while I knew my wife was mad at my mom, but not the rest of my family. And this would have been only the second time we would have seen my family since our marriage. All the other times I went by myself. So, from Memorial Day to sometime in early October I did not see my family but a few times. Once was my surprise 30th birthday. My mom was out of town to tend to my sister moving out of state, and my actual birthday that I celebrated with my mom. The only other times I had contact with my family going water skiing early in the morning on Saturdays, for about an hour, with my father, something I have done for over a decade, but was limited to about 5 times that summer. With our counselor not much was accomplished. We must have seen Renee 10 times together. All we did was sit there and listen to W complain about my mom, and what I am doing bad. Whenever I spoke my mind, W was quickly to stop me mid-sentence. The counselor split us up, then she learned that I hadn't really seen my family much more than a handful of times in a few months. But during that same time, W's family was over weekly and we saw them 1 to 2 more times over at their house. A very similar schedule as my sister-in-law and her husband has, I feel is too much. Renee told me that it was too much as well, but when I started saying that I didn't want to spend that much time over there and maybe do other things, fights would erupt. Here is the thing, W as a nurse works 3 days a week, so 3 days she was gone. 2 to 3 were spent with her family, leaving 1 to 2 for just us. We must have seen Renee separate maybe 5 times W and 3 times me. Between our schedules and seeing her church as pastor it was hard to meet weekly. Plus, things had calmed down until the holidays rolled around. I remember about a week before Thanksgiving, I get a call from my father-in-law saying W wants to get a divorce unless I saw the counselor, so I called and set up an appointment. Actually, she had an opening that day. I told Renee what was going on, and she told me that W had seen Renee that week too, telling her all the things that I am doing wrong and not getting any self-help. Renee told me that W has what is known as borderline personality disorder and gave me a title of a book to read. It was How to Deal with a Person with This Disorder. Just getting a tablet, I downloaded it and read it in my spare time. It helped a lot. W also got a few books to read and continued to see Renee. I saw her maybe 2 times more after that. I guess I should have kept going, but Renee didn't feel like I needed to, and I felt progress was going on. We got through Thanksgiving and Christmas without much incident. But sometime in early spring we purchased a home. Things were decent, not many fights. It seemed like things were finally turning around. However, that was not the case. Sometime around April, things got bad again, so I read the book that Renee told me to read again. W caught me one day. I remember thinking that split second, should I tell her what I am reading and why? I decided to, which was a mistake. She went into one of the worst tirades I have ever seen. She left the house for 2 days and came back with a vengeance. She wanted blood. She came home on a Sunday and texting all her friends to tell me that she was not borderline. Then the next day, she asked if I believed she had it. I told her that she has a lot of the characteristics someone that does have it. I wish I wouldn't. W immediately called Renee to chew her out, telling her that she is not borderline and what we talked about. Renee hid behind patient to doctor confidentiality. So that was the last time we called Renee. W went on a girls' weekend with her sisters and mother that week. It was a great time for me to catch up on sleep and get my mind right. When W got back, she made sure to tell me the entire weekend her sister and her made fun of the disorder. One good thing came from that: Renee was now public enemy #1, and during this time, my family and W started to get a relationship. Home life still was terrible. The nagging, negativity, cut-downs, and anger still continued, but was much less directed at me and my family. Also, we got a dog, which helped W stay happy for a bit, and then we planned a vacation to Europe that also kept W happy for a bit. We went on our vacation on September and we were right back to square one. W would not speak with me for half the time on our vacation while driving and before going to bed. It was just us, and one night I asked, "What is wrong?" She said, "Your family doesn't like me and you don't like to be around me." Now I thought back and was thinking, what is she talking about? The relationship with my family was getting better and I planned this vacation to just be the two of us. I remember at least 3 nights she didn't talk to me. It was time for my family to be public enemy #1 again. Also during this time I was realizing we were never going to be able to do all those cute simple things that most married couples have fun with. When we got our dog, I got her a Mother's Day card. She mocked at saying she wasn't a mother. It was all good fun from my end. I got her flowers monthly or 2x a month, but it still wasn't enough. My mother-in-law purchased her a vase for no apparent reason for a gift, and when she gave it to W, my mother-in-law said, "Now you can put all your pretty flowers you get W in here." W's response was, "He doesn't do it anymore anyways," when less than a week prior to that we threw a dying bouquet away. I didn't know what to do, so when we got back, we started looking for a counselor once again. With the same Christian group, this time we met Jim. He started asking, "What is going on between the two of you?" W just went on about trivial things at best, again not being 100% perfect. However, this time within the first 3 times meeting Jim he split us up, for the same reason I couldn't speak my mind, and like every 5th time we would go together. We have been seeing Jim 50+ times for about a year. We have had our good times and our bad times, 75% bad times I would say. The time I started to care less about W was our second honeymoon. We went for a 1-day drive to a nearby major city for 3 days. 2 of those W didn't speak to me, and what set it off was I started talking about March Madness, something I enjoy paying attention to. W didn't talk to me but very minimally for 2 days because I talked about something I was interested in. Really, I listened to the things she is interested in and have tried to learn something to make the conversation go longer. This has actually been a pattern I have noticed since we have been married. She cuts down the things I enjoy. My hobbies and interests are always a waste of money and stupid. However, her brother has a lot of the similar hobbies and interests, and they have always been interesting to her when he talks about them. I have also been changing what I talk about to keep her from blowing up. Every time I come home, I am sitting on eggshells watching every word. It is stressful. We are also back to me not going to see my family unless I want to fight. This started in March and progressively got worse, but in late July we have come to a cliff. My 32nd birthday, my wife had to control the situation and make sure we all went out as a family. Asking my parents and my grandmother, we chose a spot and a time. We arrived 30 minutes early because it was a Saturday and I didn't want my grandma to stand and wait for a table. Luckily, when we arrived, a good friend and his girlfriend were there. We asked them to sit us. A blessing from God they were there. Well, as 4 were talking and having fun, but 5 minutes before my family was to arrive, W got very anxious and stopped talking. My dad was the first to get to the table. He said hi to everyone individually and everyone was pleasant except for W. She said nothing, not a word, maybe a nod. I don't know. My grandma was right behind my dad. She said hi to W and I, because she didn't know the other 2, later was introduced and said hi, however W said nothing. Then came my mom. Before she could say hello, my friend who sat with us got up and gave my mom a hug, and I could notice my mom was in a good mood. Then I noticed my friend went over and talked to my grandma, taking over the entire table. That is usually what he does. He is the life of a situation. While this was going on, my mom sat down. Now I guess she could have said hi to W, but she also didn't say hi to me, so I don't think it was on purpose. When she sat down and asked how we were doing, I answered for both of us, because I could notice something was up. Everyone but W was talking to each other. W was silent and frowning. Even my friend says this, so I wasn't projecting something. We order food, then W goes outside for 20 minutes. At this point, everyone knows who has been around W for any amount of time. The evening for her is ruined, and she will do her best to ruin it for all. She did come back, but it was too late. You could tell how the night would end. I didn't expect my wife to want to go over to my parents' house and tell my mom off. I was able to talk her out of this, but W started a text war. I wish my mom wouldn't have ever responded, but she did. I called my dad in front of W to tell my mom to stop replying to W's texts, and that we are married and she shouldn't say negative things to W. Then I told W she shouldn't have started this, but she said she wanted to let my mother know how she was treating her. This point I didn't care anymore. I just wanted to roll up in a ball and be buried. That next morning, we had a deep heart-to-heart. I had asked, will you ever be happy being around me, and if I could ever be the man she needs. We then talked about a divorce and maybe this is not working out and saying we may try a new counselor. That was nearly 2 months ago, and between then and now, there have maybe been 2 or 3 days that are good, but they never last the whole day. W wants to start criticizing me, canceling plans we had together to see her family, or just being mad. That same weekend was my real birthday and W turned that into a bad day. I told her I wanted to do eat brats and mac and cheese, go see a movie. Simple request, because she asked. I told her that is what I wanted to do. Well, I also had a meeting with Jim scheduled. He had an emergency, so pushed me to the next day. I had no problem with that, just meant I would get home sooner. I got home and waited around for an hour. W came home and saw that I was home early. I asked why this was a problem. Her response was, I wanted to do something special for my husband. She got home 10 minutes before I would have gotten home. If Jim's would have been short, I would have been there the same time. Well, instead of starting cooking, she sat around drinking wine, going outside smoking. And we didn't start cooking until I just went in there and started to cook. However, by that time it was too late to see a movie, and that night was ruined. I asked if I could have one thing today, would you be happy? Her response was, you will have to get a lawyer and divorce me. She said this on my birthday. Again a few weeks later regarding when I asked her why she was mad all the time. Sometime around this time W also stopped seeing Jim, for no reason, said she wanted a different counselor. Jim had informed me it is possible that I am in an emotionally abusive relationship. This is after I came to him for the first time telling him what W did to me. Every other time it was, what am I doing wrong? I told him I am afraid to be around W, because I never know when she is going to snap. I never talk to her about certain topics. I feel I never can do anything right for her. I feel numb right now and dead inside. That she humiliates me in front of friends and family. As mentioned before, the criticizing. I no longer ask friends around because of this. A few say they don't want to see it. She could care less about anything I accomplish. Weight loss, work, promotion. She always blames me for why she is mad. Destroys my belongings. Her temper is unpredictable. He knows she tries to keep me away from my family. Anytime I spend money, it is a waste. Everything she spends on is okay. Even if I am spending my free Amazon gift cards from taking online surveys, she is always checking up on me. If I am 30 minutes late, I feel as though she is treating me that I am cheating on her. This week Jim also told me I should see a lawyer for a consultation, to either end it or prepare for an end. He had me ask a few friends and to talk with them. Things came out. My friends agreed with him that I am in an abusive relationship. Once this has been pointed out, I also agree. Prior to this I was thinking it was something I was doing wrong. This was my aha moment. Wednesday night W didn't say much at all. Now given she cleaned the house and made dinner, both I thanked her for and said the meal was good. I even tried to play cards with her. She was not in the mood. So, we sat and watched TV. The next day I come home as I always do, but W was not there. I waited an hour and texted her, you out doing something? I got a response, yes I am with my family, didn't want to drive home in traffic. You. I responded, I'm home. Now I get home about 5:30, so I didn't text until 6:30, and she didn't come home until 8. I had cleaned up a little and made a pizza, but when she came home, she was in her mood. She came in and put her stuff up, grabbed a glass of wine, something that is done more often than not. I asked, what is up? She said nothing. Well then I asked, why does it seem you are mad? That was the wrong question. She went on the offensive, saying there was no traffic, she just didn't want to be home, and that she is completely miserable being around me and I was not going to ruin the weekend for her. She was in a wedding party and we both planned on going. I said then I wouldn't go to not ruin it for her, and that she was not seeing the new counselor. We had an appointment the next day, however she still went. I mentioned we may want to look into getting a divorce. Again, something I said that was wrong, because that is when things got ugly. Nobody got hit. I would never lay a hand on her negatively, but I ended up leaving. She actually was telling me to take more things. I stayed at my friend's house that night and took off work the next day. On that next day W went through my email. I guess I left it up on my computer in the basement and forwarded some emails to her mom. Starting set through today I have stayed with my parents, however they are gone on vacation. I have been someone keeping busy, and I do have the dog, because she was gone all weekend with wedding plans. I am lost. I no longer know what to do. I feel the situation has run its course. I have no hope. I am not eating much, and sleep is something I cannot get. I guess it should be noted that my mother-in-law treats her husband the exact same way. My wife's sister also treats her husband the same way and have 3 kids. I should also say even when things got bad, except for the last couple months, I would still hold my wife, listen to her, compliment her, even if a snide comment was in return, take showers with her, kiss her good night and goodbye, massage her feet, and cancel plans if it wasn't that important to me and she needed me. I feel like I have given too much, but no longer receiving anything in return. I just wanted to cover all my bases, saying I have done all that I can do. House is in both our names. The current counselor knows not enough. Our second one, I still see, says I should end it and why I have hired a lawyer. The first one, we didn't make it to that point. I am starting to feel I am just an idiot to care this much, but I know people who have been divorced and they always tell me to get as much closure as possible. The more the better. I am 32, she is 30. I will say after the first few nights, the NC has been pretty easy. I have finally started eating again and getting much more sleep. Now it is not as much as I would like, it is over 6 hours, so I am feeling much better. However, other than a few texts and calls, I haven't heard much from my W. I haven't used Facebook in nearly a week. Our last phone call was days ago when I asked the questions that I knew she could not answer. What have you done to make the marriage work? And what would you have done differently? Neither question could be answered. They were both turned on me. I was the one who hung up. I was actually going to wait until next Tuesday to file the paperwork. I think I am going to move that up to tomorrow. I didn't know how using our joint bank account to pay for the lawyer would work, so I was waiting on my parents to get back in town. They get back Sunday. However, my grandma has decided to lend me the money today. Me and W were going to go on vacation this upcoming week. She knows what is going on. She is asking if she could transfer the tickets or if they were refundable. Total the tickets are $400. My response: okay, first off, we are on the verge of divorce. I have begged that you get help on your anger issue, or ask you if you know what you do to me. The first request, you refuse to get help. The second question, all you do is turn it back on me. The thing is, I answer that question. The only thing holding me back from going through the divorce is hope that you might open your eyes and see what is happening. The hardest thing about this is realizing you won't, and I am going to have to do it. This basically proves it. You are more interested in losing $400 and a vacation, which I guess you will go with someone else. Instead of answering my question or saying you will get help, you are asking me for ticket information. I forwarded you that to your email. If you want to deal with it, do it yourself. I honestly hope that is the last time I hear from her, until our court date. I am still struggling with the situation. I have, however, finished all the paperwork. I just have to turn it in. I am trying to understand what is going on, but I have been told I never will. She has decided to go on the vacation we had planned, because I no longer wanted to go with her sister. Have an appointment at 4 today. But while filling out the paperwork, I had to check my cost of insurance. Per car, I noticed there is a claim on our insurance. From 3 days ago, my W has yet to inform me about this. I also noticed it was on a rental car, unless she bought a new car, which I don't think is the case, because there is not a new car on our insurance. This happened on the vacation she went on. I have also finally realized where my anxiety about this comes from. I think I have a natural learned reaction, because of dealing with my wife all this time. So, I am afraid of the response that may and most likely will come out. I lived with my parents until I went away to college. Since then, I guess I've always had roommates. Until I got married. W only went away to school for 1 year, then returned home to finish college, living with her parents up until we got married. So, I guess I never lived alone. W and I never lived together before we were married. I filed. However, I still don't feel great about my decision. However, I think it is tough for anyone to get a divorce. Honestly, when I separated our bank account, I felt a huge lift off my chest. 2 weeks later, W still have not been served. However, all paperwork is turned in. I have been told it will take 7 to 10 business days from when all paperwork is turned in, plus 24 to 48 hours to be served. W keeps texting me about her new counselor's time she meets. I also get 1 to 2 calls from my in-laws a week just seeing how I am doing. I don't answer because all they do is pull the "you need to work through this and God hates divorce." Also, I just think how many times I begged for help from my parents-in-laws, and they never said anything. I think they only said something to W once since we have been married. I think what is getting me by right now is planning for the future. It just sucks that being 32 I am living with my parents again. I have spent a little more money than I am used to, going out with friends and buying a few things I need. Sleeping much better recently. It just sucks that I have to start all over. However, this is a learning experience and there is a lot to take away from this. I do hope my wife gets some help, but however, this will just be blamed on me. So, I wanted to serve W at home, so I was going to wait until later this week. However, somehow, she found out I filed. Is there a legal way to see that I filed? Well, on Friday she showed up at my parents' house, where I have been staying with our dog. Well, I wasn't there. I had plans to hang out with my friends on Friday night, something I haven't done lately. Well, anyways, I got about 5 phone calls around 6:30 p.m. From W. I knew something was up. Then I get a call from my father saying that W is outside the house demanding to talk to me and wanting the dog. I guess she rang the doorbell a few times and waited. My parents did not feel like answering, but they did anyways. She tried grabbing the dog. My dad shut the door on her. She then proceeded to wait outside the house in her car, smoking multiple cigarettes, for a good 15 minutes until they called the police. As soon as the cops showed up, she left. Well, W was served. So, I have noticed something lately. I have been having nightmare-like dreams just being around her. Quite vividly, actually. It keeps me up at night some nights. Also, why do I feel guilty about this? I have been told I have done everything I could have, but I also think she is hurting. I may be wrong on that, however. I am the type of person who rarely thinks of themselves. It's always about others. I just feel helpless right now. I am actually meeting with my counselor tomorrow, and my parents have actually already offered to help financially to pay for the IC, since the next couple months might get pretty expensive. I plan on still seeing Jim every other week. KISA, I guess in the long run is a bad thing. Is this where the nice guys finish last thing comes from? Update, things are going better. At work I notice I am starting to become my old self, talking to people, going out to lunch with co-workers. I no longer have as many stress headaches as possible. My counselor, Jim, recommended me to join a divorce group. He says I can help others, and it would be a good thing for me to do. I went over to our house this weekend. W was at work or out with her family, but I went over there and grabbed the rest of my clothes. Of course, late last night I get a text, "Don't come to the house." Then a few hours she calls. I don't answer. I see Jim again this week. While I know there is still a long way to go for this to be over, I am feeling less controlled by W. Honestly, part of me feels a little bad for W. While I know she could have taken 2 counselors' advice or recommendation, or just listened to me. However, I know even though she has little money, she is spending $100+ on gas a week, still going to see her parents on a daily basis, and going shopping a lot. While making decent money, I don't know what she plans on doing. I know it is not for me to worry until I have to start paying the entire mortgage, but I know when we sell our house, I would get that money back. I am part of a family cell phone plan with W, her sister, and husband. Unfortunately, I am the primary on the account. They have paid, but I would like to have those 3 not on my plan any longer. W and I have car insurance together, and while both my cars, pre-marriage, are in my name, her car, however, is in both. Is it in my best interest to keep her on our insurance, so just in case she gets in a bad accident and the other car sues her, so that I would be covered? I also wish I could just speed this process up. W has until after Thanksgiving to stop the dissolution, but I know she won't. Lawyer asked me who I would want as a realtor today. I told her. I just don't get it. Kay's lawyer told mine that she still wants to work on our relationship. If I shared texts I have gotten in the last couple weeks, I don't know how someone would see that as what she wants. So we have hit a low point. W is now telling her lawyer that I have been going over to the house on nights I was not there. I have been there 2 times since I filed. One to mow the grass, the other to grab the rest of my clothes. Specifically, she claims I was there Thursday. However, I worked until 5, ate dinner with friends until 7:30, met with Jim at 8, and was home by 9:15. She is also objecting to my items list. She says certain things I have owned for quite some time were in fact things we purchased together. I am just glad her true self is coming out. I now know who the real person is. In actuality, I believe she thinks she is making this more difficult. However, splitting up our possessions is easy to me. I just want what is mine, no more. Where actually this would be more difficult in the long run if she was cordial and pleasant. I have sent my lawyer a name of the realtor who sold the house across the street. I always have my phone on me, and one click it becomes a recorder. I have been doing that since maybe May, if there is a possibility of running into her in a non-public setting. Well, this being quickly just went out the window. She is now claiming the credit card I used the first 18 months of our marriage for everything and the last year for just random stuff she never knew about. I was able to come up with 13 divided by 14 year-end statements to prove that $24K of the $29K spent on that card was primarily for gas, groceries, utilities, insurance. Next, I find she is trying to claim maintenance to be paid. She makes nearly $50K. I do make more, but not that much more. I am getting agitated. Well, we are moving right along. My soon-to-be ex-wife is counting everything. Mentally, I am good. I think I have said this before. By her making this more difficult, it has made it easier on me. Court date less than 6 weeks away, cannot come fast enough. Still looking for maintenance, however, but I told my lawyer since she has not dropped this yet, I want to bring our marriage counselors along. D-Day today is the first court hearing. She is now claiming I spent $50,000 that she did not know about. This is after she already claimed I spent $29,000 she didn't know about. I guess she didn't know I was paying utilities, insurance, and bills, and that she was not part of our shopping trips, vacations, or going out to eat. So, the court date came and went, nothing was solved. New court date was assigned. In June. However, our house sold, and I am picking my stuff up on Sunday. My lawyers informed her lawyer on Friday afternoon. They told us that day was no good. Well, I am still going, with a police officer and 4 of my friends. The reason she said it was not a good day is because she was going to move out that day. She had the last 4 months, all last week, said, and all next week to move out. Just trying to control the situation. If we go to the court date, I will be going after everything that is mine, as in money. I have given her plenty of chances to end it 50-50. She always counters with a ridiculous offer. She claimed to not know about a credit card. I got our mortgage application which she signed, and it shows it on there. She claimed not to know that we withdrew from my premarital retirement to pay for our down payment. She signed the release form for that, have a copy of that. It's one lie after another. I just want to get on with my life. So that weekend we arrived, 5 friends, my dad, and myself. Arrived, the cop was there, but only my father-in-law and one of his son-in-laws was there. So, it went pretty smooth. I noticed a lot of my pre-marriage stuff was missing. Oh well, maybe $800 worth of stuff. I did get screwed on splitting up property, maybe lost $1,000 worth of stuff, because certain things were bought with money that was given to me. She refused to count that as my property. I didn't want to argue. After moving for about an hour, I went to ask my father-in-law a question. He responded. Then said the cop is not necessary, the crazies are not here. Wherever at most I'm out $2,000, I will take that. Replaced all my stuff in a storage unit. Last weekend I went through it. I noticed all my cards that I gave her, she gave me. Photos of us were hidden in all my stuff. I just threw them away. It was difficult, but would have been something that would have brought up memories for me, specifically the good ones, the ones I held on to. However, I notice those feelings are few and far between now. The amount of stuff she has pulled since we separated, and I know I mentioned this before, has made this so much easier. Should get confirmation that the house has sold and gone through today. That leaves one larger hurdle. Things are going better. I have started shopping for new stuff. My next place. Valentine's Day for me won't be too hard, was always a struggle for us. However, my sister is getting married the following weekend. That might be a little hard. House is sold and closed on, now just one more round of bills to spilt. I will try to focus on making new memories. Hopeful this weekend. My sister's wedding goes great. I will just have to play it by ear. Update, I know it's been a while since I last posted. After spending way more than I expected. To tell you the truth, my lawyers didn't expect that much either. We settled a week before our court date. The sad thing is it was the exact amount that was discussed the first time my lawyers met with hers in the original hearing. I am glad that is over and I am able to move on with my life. I got a promotion at work, renting my own place, and finally realizing how stressed I was living with my ex-wife. Hearing the things my friends truly thought of her were interesting, the stories they had. It didn't take long to build my relationships with old friends, looking forward to the holiday season. And maybe start dating soon, with a new outlook and lessons learned. Haven't heard from my ex other than a few text messages. I owe no alimony and I got to keep most of my retirement. The dog, 95% of my possession. And my sanity. My comments, you walked away perfectly. Start running and don't look back.